Good evening, all. How are you? How are you? Very, very well. Much well. Muchness of well. You enjoy coming here this evening. We are going to have, I think, another evening of comedy, evening of expressions, evening of finding out more about libertarians, because this day was meant to be the day where we covered both the Libertarian Scottish and, of course, as you can see on the screen, the Libertarian Party of the UK as well at the same time. But we've already covered the Scots. We covered them for 2 hours. 2 hours straight. And now, before we go over the, shall we say, the fallout, shall we say, of covering the Scottish Libertarians, we'll welcome those who are joining us today in chat. So, who have we got in chat today? FSM the Dog, hello, how are you? Simon, Dude, Cathal, and Dude again. Welcome, one and all, to what I assure you is going to be a fun evening. Because those of you who were fortunate enough to catch the Good Morning Walk indoors Scottish Libertarian edition probably got to see all the fun of the ball. All the fun of the ball. And of course, as you may very well know, partway through that, when we were going through the policies of the Scottish Libertarians, we tweeted at them. And I'll get to what their, shall we say, their response was in a bit. So, who else have we got? GC could let me put my teeth back in. Good afternoon to you, GC. Simon Carr, hello to you, my orc friend. Hello. Have a good wah on me. And P Dults or P Dulls. Good evening. So, what did the Scottish Libertarians have to say? Well, as you know, we spent 2 hours going over what is a official political party here in the UK. Well, Scotland, shall we say, in this case. And you all know I'm a card-carrying member of the Labour Party. Now, if someone came to me and said, do you know what the policies of the Labour Party? At the moment, I'd say, well, we've got a few, but not a lot, but I can try and explain to them. And I would defend, to the best of my abilities, what the policies mean and why they will be good for the UK, and essentially why you should vote for them. Like, that is my stance as someone who, again, is a card-carrying member of the Labour Party. I've officially nailed my colours to the mast. At that point, you should be able to defend your policies against someone. Now, you can obviously say, maybe I don't agree with that policy. I think maybe this policy should have been different, or, you are allowed to do that. I don't mind. But coming from a party that says it loves the free market of ideas, and that it openly welcomes debate, when I challenged, or well, I didn't even challenge them, I just asked, I said, hey, do you want to come on? And I asked them to come on today to talk about your policies. Let's have a talk about your policies. I want to talk about them because I believe those Scottish libertarian policies, if they were generally brought in as a mandate, by a political party, I am very much in the opinion those policies proposed by the Scottish Libertarian Party would do untold harm to the working class people of the UK and of Scotland as well. I am in no doubt they would cause harm. Their welfare policy didn't make sense. It wasn't for welfare, then it was for welfare, then it wasn't again. They talk about taking away people's rights of, minority rights, to which I have to ask, does that include disabled rights? Because again, disabled rights are a protected, disabled people are technically a protected class here in the UK. So does that mean taking away disabled rights as well? Because they didn't seem to talk about that in that section, which was very, very worrying. And to be honest, the general consensus from not only me, but I think everyone will agree in chat who saw it, that essentially there was absolutely 0% compassion in those policies. And that, to me, speaks of a party filled with selfish people. And I would never want to be part of a party or even support a party that just supports that's just selfishness. And quite frankly, anyone who would ever stand for such a party not only is a crackpot and a lunatic, but has absolutely 0% compassion for anyone else around them. That was my general feeling. So that's the Scottish Libertarians. But maybe today, because I'll tell you now, the UK Libertarians are essentially this very slick presentation they've got going on here is what the Scottish Libertarians wish they had. Because they've certainly got a more slick presentation. On the opening page of the Scottish Libertarian homepage, by the way, it actually said that it called government a cancer that the party intended to cut out. Sums it up very, very perfectly what's going on here. So with that said, let's dive into these policies in their manifesto. So here we are. So this is officially the manifesto of the Libertarian Party. And it's 84 pages long. Now, I do not think we are going to get through all 84 pages. I do not think we are going to get through all 84 pages, but we can try. We can try and see how far we get. Maybe in the future we'll return to, I don't know, part 2 of this manifesto. But anyway, let's welcome some more people in, shall we? Let's see who else we've got. Cathal OG, welcome. Jan Cass, welcome. Pretty Bird, greetings to you. George Broadley, evening to you. Harjito1, evening to you. I think that's everyone so far that's popped up in the chat so far. But like I say, if you are in the if you are watching and lurking, as I say, don't be afraid to say hi. Dude won't bite. Although I make no promises that he won't. Paul Sanjimino, greetings from LA. Well, greetings to you then, from the best coast. As they say, left coast is best coast. So greetings to you, Paul. And of course, please do remember to hit that like and share button. Like I say, it does help out the channel a lot. So, Kirsten Korolsi, I think that's how you say it. Welcome, good evening to you. Yes, welcome to this. This is going to be fun. Like I say, the Scottish Libertarian manifesto was, I'm sure, as other people will tell you, a laugh riot. But before we get into this, there is a very interesting quote that I want to go over, because this party, the Libertarian Party of the UK, was formed in 2007, I believe. And in 2008, the Times did a story on the Libertarian Party. And we're not going to go over the story. I just want to go over a quote of what the author of that said. And he said this. He said that the people who started this Libertarian Party would have been far better starting a pressure group, and that this party is going to result in the disinterest to many libertarians, meaning that they're going to libertarianism is going to lose interest, just as it has done in the US. Because I'm sure as Paul will tell you, the Libertarian Party in the US is full of sensible, plain-spoken people who have absolutely, no problems, and these are stable individuals. Andre McGeady, did I miss you? Oh, I'm very sorry about that. Sorry about that. I'm sorry that I missed you, but welcome. Welcome, Audrey. So, oh yes, there you are. Sorry, I did miss you. Sorry. But yeah, let's get into this. Let's dive into this. We've 13 minutes into this now, so let's dive into this. So here we have it, a manifesto. Let's go. Let's get into this then. All right. Should we go over the foreword? Yeah, tell you what, we'll go over this part here. We're talking about the 5 basic principles that this is built on. So, the manifesto of the Libertarian Party, we're here for those of you following. In fact, tell you what, hold on a second. I'm just going to put the link in chat if you want to read along. Let's see if we can. There we go. Oh. There we go. Better. Right. Here we are. So I think, as you are right, some people saying skip to the policies. I think these are important because you've got to remember, these are, as they say, the 5 basic qualities that all the rest of their policies are based on, these 5 principles. So we're going to go over these first, because I guarantee you they will contradict probably all 5 of these points as we look into their actual policies in a bit. So what are these 5 points then? So the first one, that the overall effect of all our policies together shall, quote, decrease the size and power of the state. Typical libertarian stuff there. The rights of the individual are paramount and should not be neutered. Oh, sorry, should I've read that completely wrong there. And should be nurtured, sorry. So the rights of the individual are paramount and should be nurtured, okay? That the individual is, quote, better placed to understand what is at their best interest than the state, that those who have power must be held accountable for their actions, and that power should be devolved so that it is as close to the people who are affected as possible. So those are essentially their basic sounding principles. Overall, so far, quite frankly, so far, so good. Not as probably not as crazy as the Scottish Libertarians were, but okay, we'll see how that might change in a bit. We'll zoom out a bit. There we go. Right. So, do they have a? So this is their first part. So they want constitutional reform. So a written constitution for Britain. I can get behind this. And I think this is something that everyone, I think, indeed, can get behind. I think Britain does need a written constitution. So bizarrely on that point, we found something that we agree on to begin with, that Britain does need a written constitution. However, of course, we are going to disagree fundamentally, I think, what actually goes in this constitution. So let us zoom in and find out what this constitution that they would create is. So the Libertarian Party believes, hang on, can we get this bigger? Total sidebar, finding documents, notation mode, print, download. I wonder if we press that. Oh, is that better? That's much better. Oh, that's excellent. Yes, I'm glad it's still there. I'm glad I investigated that. Excellent. So hopefully now you can see these a bit better. If not, we might just go to full screen. But we'll go for that for the time being. So, oh, there we go. So, this is their written constitution and what should be in it. So, the Libertarian Party believes in a written constitution that holds the individual to be above the state. Okay. I do not think an individual should be above the state in question, because it's very often at the time, as we've seen with, gay rights, trans rights, defending even criminals. Technically, the state has a responsibility, I believe, to protect those people. So that's our first disagreement in this straight away. Second, that a limited government with both horizon and vertical separation, horizontal, not horizon, both horizontal and vertical separation of powers and vigorous checks and balances will best preserve the liberty of the people. Okay, but of course, limited government, of course, means, as we've seen previous to libertarians, pretty much getting rid of almost every single form of government. We'll see how that would probably affect society probably later. So, Great Britain should be, quote, a federation of free states and the people determine their own policies. Okay, how, for example, would it go if one of these confederations, let's just go crazy, let's say this does happen. Let's say this does happen. What is to stop then, quote, the people of Scotland voting for a policy to essentially dominate the rest of the UK and all these other regional constituencies. If that's the policy people want, you know, we saw how great Brexit was when you put it to, quote, the will of the people. Yes, and you are right there. If you do put individuals above the state, that would also mean that they are not beholden to law or a judge, and that the state cannot indeed hold them. So you are right. It's a failed state already. So the next one, that it should be confirmed in law that people are sovereign. And as we've just said there, if people are, quote, sovereign, then what does that mean to someone who commits a crime? Are they technically above the reproach of the law if they are, of course, sovereign? You've all, I'm sure, heard from America about the so-called sovereign individual movement, or the sovereign statists, and how, well, do wacky they are over there. You've only got to look up some quite hilarious videos. But yeah, ooh, interesting times indeed. The next point, that the monarch should be permitted only as long as it has the formal approval of the people and should be subordinate to the Constitution. Okay, fine. But again, what if, let's say, the people of Wales decide to appoint their own king? Just, you know, just saying, after all, you've said they want their own policies, so could the people of Wales technically elect their own king? Could they instate a monarchist government if they wanted to, if it's technically a confederation? Just saying. That all public servants should swear allegiance to upholding the Constitution and be liable in law for misconduct and fraud. Why on earth would they have to swear allegiance to uphold the Constitution? I'd figure that if they were in the in public service, they would be doing that already. We have civil servants who do this already. So do you have a problem with us? You know, doesn't make sense, but there you go. That first past the post voting system should be replaced with a form of proportional representation. Oh my word, something that we agree on. So, shockingly enough, that is so far the only 100% thing that I actually agree on. That yes, we do need to get rid of first past the post and should be replaced with a form of proportional representation. I agree with you, libertarians. That would be incredibly good. Shockingly, we agree on something again. So this is the next part. The Libertarian Party proposes that the written constitution embodies the following basic concepts, namely that the Constitution be federal in nature, with each participating state sovereign and with each an equal voice in the compact. Okay, simple federal system. The people of each state are the ultimate sovereign body of each state. Again, this is again a system of what they're proposing here is if you've ever heard of it, is what is called 100% democracy. And 100% democracy basically states that regardless of the voting population, obviously everyone gets a vote. And of course, this sounds to be quite reasonable when you think about it that. But you've got to think that what if a certain group of people started wanting things that weren't then in favor for the rest of the people in that state? You know, it could happen. Again, like I say, this would literally fall apart straight away. Again, I do not see how any libertarian state would almost become a failed state from day one. I don't see how you would avoid that. All individuals are possessed of inalienable and natural rights to life, liberty, property, and all the rights that derive from them. We've definitely heard that before when we were covering the Scottish. That, quote, this political entity this constitution creates be called the Constitution of the Free States of Britain. Okay. The purpose of the Constitution is to, quote, restrain and limit the general government. Again, what if people want the government to do something and then they have their hands tied by the Constitution? Can we vote to have more government? You know, just saying, just saying that is a normal, well, reasonable thing to ask for. What if the people of the UK say that they do want more government? Because I notice you've got this Thomas Jefferson quote that the government is best which governs least. Again, this is why representative democracies have always been the ones that have always succeeded. And again, Dew brings up a good point here. The right to property is indeed a very significant problem, because 95% of all property is in the hands of 1%. And of course, this would essentially create a new feudal aristocracy, essentially. You know, straight away already, just from the Constitution alone, it's this new state they're wanting to create, the Federal States of Britain, that is falling to pieces pretty quickly. Where are we? Powers. There is a separation of powers horizontally between the executive, the legislative, and the judicial branches, and vertically between the general government and the states. Okay, so you've got your three branches of government, and then you want more government on top of that. Can I just say, the more government you have, the more bureaucracy takes place. So remember, all of these policies that they're wanting to push forward will have to be voted on numerous times. And what would happen, say, if one particular state, for something that, say, wanted to be federal, voted against it? Would it not go through? Would it be stopped? What if, for example, as if you were claiming that you want more local people to have power, what if one city votes overwhelmingly against one of your proposals or governments? It would cause absolute chaos. And you've only got to look at Italy, by the way. Italy, which technically has three 3 Senates, and it takes ages to get everything done because a bill would have to pass through the 3 houses to be fully passed, meaning that if it passes the first one, gets stopped to the second, it goes all the way back to the beginning. It can literally, they've had bills and policies literally get to the 3rd house and then fall flat on the 3rd house and then go right back to the beginning. And that's just with 3. I remember in the UK, we've got 2 technically. We've got the House of Commons and House of Lords. They're proposing almost adding an infinite number of those with this vertical ascension, essentially, that they're talking about. The Constitution is a legal document with fixed meaning, not a living or flexible document open to interpretation. So that's it. You can never, ever disagree with the Constitution. You can never, ever change it. You are forever, ever bound to this document. Why on earth would you do that? Why on earth would you bind yourself like that? I mean, even our own government, we literally have a rule in the Parliament that no Parliament can bind the hands of a future Parliament. Meaning that Boris Johnson can literally not pass a law, for example, that would stop any, for example, future Labour government possibly implementing any future socialist policies, because it's technically classed as binding the hands of a future Parliament. You know, it's not a good thing. So instantly, this constitutional reform that they want, this written constitution, I would be 100% against. Who would ever want a constitution that you literally cannot change, is not interpretable, and where is it? And even not flexible. And it's not even a living document either. I think that is so foolish. And you are right, Kirsten. It sounds a bit like a dictatorship, because it is a dictatorship. It is a shocking admission of dictatorship by a Libertarian party, a party that so far says it praises freedom above all. So anyway, the next point. All officers shall be bound by an oath to the Constitution, and that a breach of that oath be considered a serious matter. So I get the feeling that a lot of these libertarians, or UK libertarians, have had, shall we say, run-ins maybe with the police, and maybe, shall we say, have argued for their constitutional rights and feel that they were hard done by. I think that might be the case. Next point. The Confederation will aid in the preservation from external attack and from conflict between the states. Wait, conflict between the states? They are now openly admitting they are literally openly admitting that these free states of Britain can declare war on each other. So instead, I think I said earlier about what if Scotland just literally wanted to dominate the rest of the states? Well, you've just openly said that these states can now go to war against each other. Oh my word. Oh my word. So yeah, get ready to get ready to pack up and go to war, because we're going to war with Wales, boys. Those damned Welsh have taken the mickey out of Yorkshire for too long. It is time to rise up, my Yorkshire brethren. Vote for war against Wales. Then after we shall take the south, and then the north, and then we shall create the true country, the true motherland. No longer shall be called Britain, it shall be called Yorkshire land. And Yorkshire tea shall run wild, run through the streets. Everyone will bathe upon Wednesdays in Yorkshire tea and biscuits. That's just straight up mad. Straight up mad. And you are right, Helen. Yorkshire will end up the top dog. And how did this war start, you may ask? It all started when the Welsh refused to accept Eccy Thump as the new national pastime. Pretty Bird, restore the Danelaw. Restore the Danelaw? What? We Yorkshiremen might have a bit of Viking in us, but we ain't restoring the Danelaw. we ain't freeing ourselves from these southern people to then subjugate ourselves to the rule of a Dane. So anyway, that I think it might be the Constitution. Oh no, it still goes on. It still goes on. Okay. Let's rapid fire through some of these quickly. Just like I say, we've got a lot to go through. So the general government will be funded equally by the states. The government shall consist of bicameral legislature? Bicameral legislature? Is that how you say it? I've never seen that word before. Is that a typo? That has to be a typo. A constitutional court and an executive. The monarchy continue only in a private manner, subject to the will of the people. The lower house of the legislative branch will consist of a chamber elected by the people of each state to be guarded, to be the guardian of the rights of the people, a reflection of the broad range of values and attitudes of the people, and to hold the key of the treasury and of the confederation. Those of the upper house of the legislature consist of the chamber elected by the Senate legislators to be the guardian of the sovereign of the state and the preceding body of the confederation, especially tasked with to the confederation as the whole and to foreign matters, and of approving appointments made by the executive. So essentially, apparently, even though they like democracy, you don't get to vote for the upper house. That's the job of the lower house to do that. Nice to say that we don't have a say in this new dictatorship. The chief executive of this deputy to be elected by an electoral college, so as to allow the people of each state to a say to avoid demagoguery and to keep the states from being disenfranchised. Right, so basically an American electoral college. An electoral college also has its own problems. It shocks me that you want PR, but do not want to use one of the most advantageous points of PR, which is you would create a house, and basically whoever has that majority would obviously get to rule, but obviously this would create very interesting parties which would end up working together. And again, I think would be very good for our democracy. Next one, the chief executive be the first ambassador and have a line item non-blocking veto over laws and be commander-in-chief of the military forces in a time of declared war. So essentially, this chief executive, or to be the first ambassador, could essentially veto any law he would like. Okay. Good luck passing laws then if you've got someone maybe like Boris Johnson in charge. But yeah, good on you. Next one, officers to be susceptible to impeachment, elected officials to expulsion, members of the upper house open to recall by the state legislatures. Okay, at least they've got that in there. At least we know what we can recall these awful people that they're probably going to put in. Only the legislative branch shall have the power to declare war. Okay. Military power shall be the bailiwick of the state and not the general government. Okay. But in a moment, we're about to see their very interesting military policy. Not to spoil it, but it does involve mass conscription. So get your marching boots on, because it looks like if you're in the UK, we're all being conscripted. So much for that then. So the general government have no power to borrow money. Interesting. Okay. Then how would we ever finance anything if we can't borrow money? Something to which every single form of government has had at a core of it. Even going back to the old days of the Danelaw, as someone has mentioned back then, kings would have to borrow money from their subjects and then they would use it for war or something else. Like I say, it wasn't just taxes. Where are we? Yep. The general government have no power to erect corporations. That definitely seems to be a typo. Unless that, again, that is referring to something like the NHS, BT, or something like that, basically meaning that the government cannot essentially create jobs. Okay, nice policy there. You can tell my sarcasm's coming through. Christ, the bike. Bills require passage in both houses and can be vetoed by the executive and must be short and pertain to one subject and have a sunset clause of no more than 10 years. Why on earth would you pass a law, like a good law, and then say, okay, we're going to make sure that this law is voted on every 10 years? Because it runs out. That is a terrible way. That would slow down the legislature so much, because not only would you again be having to pass new laws and look at new legislation and look at changes to legislation, but you would also have to be continuously passing all this legislation that was passed 10 years ago. That's okay. So next, a yearly budget bill list that lists spending and costs for the year Okay, that's pretty much what we have already in the budget, which is, you know, announced twice a year. The state court in any state is the final court of appeal in the state, and that no case can be appealed or brought to the Constitutional Court unless it is strictly a matter of a federal nature. That might be bad, because then you might end up again with a patchwork of laws throughout all this constitutional federational agreement. Okay. Okay. A 2/3 vote of state legislators can veto a decision made by the Constitutional Court, and individuals and states can sue for injunctive relief against laws deemed unconstitutional. But wait, you just said earlier that the Constitution is a legal document with a fixed meaning, not a living or a flexible document open to interpretation. That is what happens. That is what lawyers do all the time. They interpret it. I can't even say it. They look at the law and they interpret it. I can't even say it. God damn it. And they look at it and it's just like, what in the hell? That is one mess of a constitution. That is one mess of a constitution. I'll say that now. So that's their mess of a constitution. I don't know. Does it continue? Oh, no. Here we are. The defense policy, or Cardwell 2.0. Straight into the defense policy. Here we are. So this is where it gets really wacky doodle. This is where it gets really wacky doodle, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the defense policy, which we didn't get to cover last time when we covered the Scottish Libertarians. They didn't have a defense policy from what I could see. But be prepared for this one. This one gets quite ridiculous very quickly. So, the only legitimate role of the state is defense. How you intend to fund this defense is an interesting thing. From the time of the Saxon kings, the role of the people is in mutual defense, as the third was paramount. Okay, a third, how it worked by Saxon kings, was when this was called, you were all expected to gather at the banner of the house call and march to war. You did not have a choice. And if you did not do that, then you would be kicked off the Lord's land. Okay. This is this also gets a bit fascistic as well, because a key point of fascism is, of course, the fetishization of the military and the worshipping of it, and we're about to see that. So a libertarian government, so remember, to serve was a matter of honor and duty. A libertarian government would seek to re-establish the connection between the ordinary citizen and the defense of the country. Meaning we are all getting recruited. And remember, if you don't serve, then you aren't honorable, and you clearly do not care for your country. That is a key point of fascism. And we've already said this would slip into a dictatorship. And I think we can see where this dictatorship is going. So this is not a new concept. Trained bands, militias, and yeomanry have fought with distinction whenever the country has been threatened. We are not seeking to re-establish the days of national service which survived the Second World War. No, you absolutely are. We'll get to that in a bit. But to establish a personal responsibility to defend our way of life and hard-won freedoms. Just remember, if you don't serve, you're not doing your duty and you are clearly not an honourable person. Remember that. This controversial policy was overwhelmingly endorsed by the membership of the Libertarian Party in a free vote. How nice. Firstly, a libertarian government would seek to avoid war. We will not make no nation our natural enemy and will seek good diplomatic relations and trade with all countries. However, any potential aggressor should be in no doubt of our willingness to defend our way of life and freedoms. There have been too many expensive wars and lives lost in foreign adventures on behalf or in an alliance. So they don't want to be in NATO by the looks of it, with other powers. A direct threat to British territory should be the gauge with which we decide to consider deploying the armed services. Currently, the three armed services are competing for resources, leading to waste and misdirected priorities. We will establish, quote, a united British Defence Force, starting immediately with the most senior officers who will cease to belong to a single service. We have three branches of the military for a reason, because that is how they best operate. If you know anything about military history of World War I, basically everything was under the auspices of the British Army, regardless of what it was. There was no Royal Air Force at the time. That was later to be introduced, and planes were either under the restriction of the Navy or under the Army. And quite frankly, no one knew how to use them. No one knew how to deploy them. They were just this new, very novel concept. And of course, it wasn't until the RAC was created, which is the Royal Air Corps, which then created its own doctrines and focused on how this new military technology should actually be used at the time. And of course, what ended up happening was we got mixed unit tactics, which eventually what ended up winning the Second World War, not the Second World War, First World War, in that all these three pieces, meaning that the artillery did not work in conjunction with the infantry. They were, again, in one British Army, but did not work together. This is what a one policy was indeed the problem was. So this is why separate branches that are separate but work together is a good policy. Not doing that is pretty much not how any other major military functions in this world. I hope that's made sense. So let's go for this. Who all cease to be still in single service. Each of the three armies are currently acting as an independent force. No, they're not, because there is a commander-in-chief of all British armed forces. He's technically like a lieutenant general, and he's in charge of the overall plan of that. That is how our military operates. Okay. We will seek to integrate them. This will be part of our root and branch reappraisal of defense, which we call Cardwell 2.0, after the last major reform of 1868 to 1874, following the debacle of the Crimean War. Okay, you seem to be wanting to go back to those things that maybe caused the debacle of the Crimean War, but okay. A libertarian government will prioritize defense in conjunction with the aim of avoiding foreign entanglement, except insofar as required by a mutual defense pact with other members of NATO. Interesting, because you seem to say that you do not want to be part of an alliance earlier on. Again, the internal contradictions of libertarianism there, which have proven to be the guarantee in peace in Europe since 1945. As party policy is firmly to leave the European Union, a libertarian government would not require British servicemen to be part of the European army. Okay. Nice to know that they're still pushing that bit of quack pottery that UKIP were pushing, that there's going to be a European army, there's going to be a European army, this bill they're going to create a European army. It didn't create a European army. It's going to create a European army. It passed. It didn't create a European army. Oh no, there's another piece of legislation that's going to create a European army. Not going to create a European army, my friends. Well, let's continue. This ambition is exemplified by our most important defense policy, namely to establish a yeomanry. We take as our model the Swiss Defense Force. Okay. Switzerland has a standing army of around 60,000 troops, but it can mobilize 20,000 Air Force reservists within 48 hours and a further 8,000 Army reservists within 8 days, an additional 35,000 within 10, an additional 1 million former reservists aged 22 to 34 can be recalled, and more slowly to muster of the 1.16 million men. By contrast, the UK, with a population of 8 times larger, can only mobilize an army 9/10 smaller. Yeah, we don't really need a big army. It's shock horror. Again, for someone who wants small government, not only are you mandating conscription here, as the Switzerland model is, because it's 2 years compulsory national service, you are also saying that you want to exemplify the honor and duty that it is to serve in this new yeomanry that you're creating. Again, very fashy, but okay. We already know they're headed to a dictatorship. And of course, to mobilize a larger army would take months of training and shortage of equipment and basic infrastructure. A libertarian government will therefore make defense cost effective and reinforce the connection between duty and freedom. Establishing a yeomanry as a civil defense corps, participants will be free to choose a non-combat role, such as fire service, paramedic, nursing engineers, and Coast Guard. So they are still going to force people into it, even if you don't want a non-combat role. How nice of them. So these are some of their policies here. Yeomanry. A libertarian government will establish a 1 million man strong yeomanry and a 43,000 strong air yeomanry. The yeomanry will be required by law to serve only on British territory. Okay, so how then would you say, if this country was to go to war against France, how would you defeat France if it can only serve on British soil? Doesn't make sense. Don't worry, chaps, we'll not go over there and beat them. Okay. Benefits. A yeomanry will give citizens the opportunity to become responsible through service. It would also free a larger population of the professional armed forces to serve overseas. Professionals will continue to be volunteers. I am shocked that we haven't got a Starship Troopers reference yet. You know, service guarantees citizenship. To increase the size of the professional army. Again, how do you intend to fund that? Again, considering we know later on you are going to cut that. Interesting. And oh yeah, by the way, here in these notes is a full how they intend to establish this yeomanry. If you want to go read that, feel free. An additional offshore patrol ship every 10 months for 10 years. Oh my word, that's good. Again, where are they going to get the money for all this? Bear in mind that they literally cannot borrow money. They've literally written it into their constitution, which says literally cannot be changed, that they literally cannot borrow money, and they are going to build a new offshore patrol ship every 10 years. So the Libertarian Party would finance a 400% increase in the number of offshore patrol vessels. Okay. Nice to know. Oh, here we are. 5 more additional hunter-killer nuclear submarines. How are you going to finance that? How are you going to finance that? Oh, and this is quite funny. The Libertarian government, following advice from serving and retiring naval officers, would not commit to the construction of any further aircraft carriers. The concept of aircraft carriers projecting power is a fallacy, unless used against a far weaker opponent, such as blue water capital ships, add little to the home defense. Do we go back to battleships? I'm quite confused by this, because aircraft carriers have more than proved their worth as a military asset that you think the Navy might want. More than 5 additional hunter-killer nuclear submarines. But there you go. And of course, number 5 is quite interesting as well. Reduce the number of civil servants in the Ministry of Defense by 80%. So essentially, you're going to fire 80% of your office staff. You are going to make, as you can see there, that would make 46,000 people redundant. 46,000 people redundant. Do you think we should? I don't know how I could do it, but I wish I could have a counter of how many people they're going to make redundant, because this isn't the only reference they're going to make of making people redundant. They are going to make a lot of people redundant. So number 6, establish a dedicated military hospitals and dedicated military pension. There actually is dedicated military hospitals already in the UK. I don't know if they're aware of this. And there is a military pension as well. So I'm going confused by 6 because there are military hospitals and there are military pensions as well. Maybe they disagree that it isn't enough. Who knows? Better equipment, boots, and protection. Okay. So again, how do you intend to fund all this new equipment? Considering, again, you aren't going to be gathering taxes, but we'll get to that later. Of course, the end notes here. Yeah, the defense policy doesn't seem to make sense. Doesn't seem to make sense at all, that defense policy. Here we are. Digital, culture, media, and sport. So the first one, straight away, the BBC's Royal Charter will be terminated. Point 1, end the BBC license fee. Again, I am very, very much in favour of keeping the BBC and keeping its license fee. The BBC is a massive employer. It is a massive employer, especially in the digital, culture, and media sectors here in the UK. It plays a massive role, again, in that exact same sector here in Yorkshire. Getting rid of the BBC would be a terrible bad move. It would end up being sold off to essentially private companies, which would, again, then essentially lean on the BBC, because the BBC has an incredible reputation around the world to be, well, spread propaganda, whoever happens to be paying the most for it. Not only that, you would also lose every single local BBC service as well, which provides an amazing service to essentially the people of the UK. I think getting rid of the BBC would be a terrible thing. I think it would be one of those things that people don't think about missing, but when it's gone, you would certainly miss it. So, in 2018-2019, the Government Department for Digital, Culture and Sport spent some 6.3 billion, including capital spending and including 4.0 billion of so-called resource AME spending, essentially on the BBC. Upon maturation of the BBC's Royal Charter, which runs until December of 2027, the license fees that provide its income will be terminated. To encourage the BBC to stand on its own 2 feet immediately, its income will be reduced by a pro rata percentage of this percentage figure in equal annual tranches commencing in year 1. Hundreds of thousands of people would lose their job. Hundreds of thousands of people would lose their job. So again, I wish we had a ticker on the side of the screen where I could literally count the number of people so far this Libertarian government tends to make unemployed, because they certainly do seem to do that. Oh, anyway, let's get on, see what else they want to do. Cut state contribution to lottery funds by 50%. So essentially, the National Lottery does a lot of things for these good causes that it does. That will, again, will cause incredible harm. So again, in 2015 and 16, the Department of Cultural Media and Sport, as it was, spent 1.524 billion on grants on, quote, good causes via the National Lottery. This is the state giving money to charity. So again, they don't like basically the state spending money on things that could actually help. And of course, while they are in favor of charities, they're not in favor of charities. Again, you're saving all this money, but that money's not going to last forever. And bear in mind that you can't raise taxes, and you are going to probably introduce a flat tax. But there you go. Number 3, remove VAT on bicycles, bicycle repairs, and walking boots. So other parties are offering free sweets for young people. So a bus pass is free sweets. Is free sweets to young people. A bus pass is going to be far more useful to a young person than bicycle repairs and walking boots. Let's face it. If you were to go to a young person, do you want a free bus pass, which gives you a lot more freedom and independence, or do you just want a free bicycle repairs and some walking boots? Again, I think they're going to go for the bus pass every single time. Oh, and this is a good one. End broadband delivery in the UK. So guess what, people? If you don't have broadband where you live yet, tough luck, because if this Libertarian government got in, they ain't funding broadband rollout. It's going to be left up to individual companies. So broadband delivery in the UK has spent a massive amount of money on BT to roll out faster broadband services. The time has come to cut its funding for this program, as is essentially the state funding BT. The state should fund infrastructure projects. And I think we can pretty much say it by this time, the internet is a state infrastructure at this point. And having good delivery of this service is very influential. BT would not be able to do all this upgrade alone. It has to have government money to be able to do it. You know, I think I've talked about this before, but the steel industry in the UK wants to go carbon neutral. It wants to create carbon neutral steel. It wants to do that, but it cannot do it by itself. If the government was actually serious about creating a level up agenda for this country, it would create and subsidize the steel industry so that they can transition to creating carbon neutral steel. And it would be the first such move in the world, and it would be incredibly good for the environment as well. And again, the steel industry cannot do this without government help. This is why you have the government fund things like this. But there you go. Like I say, libertarians clearly don't understand how useful the state can actually be. Notes there. Oh, the economic overview. The state has no money of its own. So you see it here first, people. The state basically has no money. The state cannot use it. And of course, straight away, number 1, inheritance tax to be scrapped. Inheritance tax only affects the very, very wealthy in this country. There is a massive campaign in this country especially run by, shock horror of all things, the Conservative Party, because they don't like having to pay so much inheritance tax. Inheritance tax, if you are in the UK, barely affects you. You might have to pay something, but you're not going to pay a lot. So doing this would only benefit the incredibly wealthy, because one of the ways that really wealthy people keep their wealth is intergenerational wealth. They inherit it. Now, here's the thing. Even if you did look at the inheritance tax, these people that do that, they still inherit vast sums of money. Vast sums of money. And it's not just money they're inheriting, because remember, most rich people do not earn a wage. They get their money from other things like owning assets. So effectively, we are not taxing most of the rich people in this country, because remember, they don't earn a wage. And most of our income tax wage is the highest form that we get to do that. And FSM's pointing out right here as well. Yeah, wealthy people find the most ways to avoid paying this tax, not only inheritance tax, but other tax as well. So again, scrapping the inheritance tax would be an incredibly dumb move by the Libertarian Party here. Tax power to devolved by default. A libertarian government will by default devolve taxation powers to lower levels of government. What lower level of government? Because I haven't actually seen what they mean by lower levels of government. Do they mean like town councils? Is a parish council suddenly always going to be able to tax the people who live in the parish? A city is going to be able to set their own tax on different things. This would create a massive network and massive patchwork of different taxes. You would never be able to keep up with it. You know, if you've ever seen an accountant, they literally have like a book of the British tax code. They would literally have to have a bookshelf for almost every town, every city, and every region potentially in the UK. That's insane. And of course, as we said earlier on, the Libertarian Party of the UK are going to make hundreds of thousands of people redundant if they ever come into power. Thus, here you have point number 3. Government departments to be closed by default. So, no more HMRC. No more MI5, because that wasn't in the budget. No more MI6. Again, that wasn't in the defense budget. No more immigration. Think of all these government departments that fulfill a very useful use in this country, such as HMRC, that is responsible for gathering and taking tax. Not only that, but look at customs. If you're going to get rid of the Her Majesty's Customs Department, how do you know what goods are coming in and going out of the country? This is absolutely insane. Absolutely insane. Oh, and this is the best part, because they also want to do what Trump did with regulation. So a libertarian government will put before every department the question, is this best done by the government? And in addition, when legislation is created or regulations are, for every act passed through Parliament or Free State legislature, 2 previous acts will be scrapped, and for every word of legislation written, 2 words of the former regulations will be deleted. What? 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 So literally, let's say you pass regulation regarding cars. If you pass new regulation regarding cars, that means you have to remove at least 2 pieces of regulation. So if you pass, let's say AI driver cars come in, and we've got to pass some form of regulation to govern these, to make sure that at least these AI is at a certain standard. What pieces of regulation from cars would you have to get rid of? Do you want to get rid of fuel efficiency, airbags, car safety? That is easily the biggest piece of nonsense I have seen for a while. Why on earth would you pass legislation and then force government departments to then get rid of legislation which they might even need? What on earth? What on earth? What on earth? That is ridiculous. Again, that doesn't make sense. Why would you do that? Again, if I had someone from the English Libertarian Party, I would make them defend this. I would say, how can you justify it as a party putting this in your manifesto? Why on earth would this be a good thing? And I talk about the cars. How do you measure that? It doesn't make sense. Corporation tax to be scrapped. Yes. Yeah, of course. Corporations should just pay nothing in tax. All right. Again, it says here, corporations are composed of people, and when they are taxed in themselves, the people get taxed twice on the one profit before it gets paid out once again. No, corporations should absolutely be taxed. They make a monumental amount of money. So, and again, they're using the justification that this will increase investment in companies and increase more jobs, again, which is a complete fallacy. There you go. 5, value-added tax to be scrapped. So getting rid of VAT. Again, sales tax, again, good way for people to get things in from this. And of course, the citing here, of course, Japan and New Zealand have gotten rid of VAT very recently. However, there are now very good arguments for bringing that back, because obviously Japan and New Zealand have lost a form of tax, and going forward into again post COVID, a lot of countries are now looking at how do we raise our tax bills without affecting the economy, but also when we get that money, we want to then reinvest it into the economy. And I wouldn't be surprised if New Zealand and Japan put VAT tax back on the menu, so to say. Education. Well, if you remember from the Scottish Libertarians, if you are poor, you can forget going to school altogether. Let's see if the English Libertarians follow a similar policy. So, a libertarian education system will fulfill the following three simple objectives. Number one, give parents authority over their children's educational choices. 2, break up the de facto state education monopoly. Okay, so no more state schools, meaning that now everyone has to pay to go to school. Okay. Grant increased autonomy to education providers whilst imposing only a limited collection of mandatory core subjects, meaning English, mathematics, and science, up to 16. So what about history, geography, IT? What else do we do? Oh yeah, technology we did. What, food tech, we did woodworking, we had CAD CAM classes in my secondary school. Again, school is just more than English, maths, and science. You need to teach kids history, you need to teach them geography, and you need to especially teach them about IT. So that is insane. Let's see if they've got more points, because I'm aware we've been going for over an hour and a half at this point, and I don't know how much longer. I don't know how much longer of this I can take. So, and we're only, where are we? 21 pages into it. Okay. Okay. Let's see if we've got any more points. Or is it just? Here we are. The abolition of compulsory education and compulsory inspection for children under the age of 7. Now, of course, this goes off the Finnish model, but I guarantee you, if we were to look into the Finnish model, and indeed, if there are any Finnish people in chat, I'm sure that they will tell us that their like official education, quote, doesn't start until 7, but they do actually have some form of education before that age. I guarantee you there is some sort of like formal education, because Finnish children do just not turn up at school at age 7 like not being able to read and write. Like, I understand about the bits about the Finnish school system, but just to get rid of like compulsory education completely, no, I don't think that is that way. And again, if there's anyone from Finland in chat, I'm sure they would be able to tell us, no, that's not 100% true. There is some form of like formal education before they get to like age 7. A scholarship for every child. Oh, how generous of them. A libertarian government will provide vouchers to all parents to cover the cost of their child's early years and secondary education. Then give them the option to top up for a voucher to pay for superior providers. This will lead to a true marketplace in school education. Oof. Oof. Again, if you know anything about the US system, this voucher idea is a brainchild, or should we say a brainworm, of the current libertarian, not libertarian, the current Republican Party, spearheaded vastly by Betsy DeVos. And of course, some of these places aren't very good. There have been cases where some of these schools, these charter schools, have literally shut down because they've gone out of business, and then that leaves a child out of school. And that is not just a one-off phenomenon. I'm pretty sure that has happened a lot in US education. Like I say, again, the state should provide education for someone, I think, right up to the age of 18, and higher education as well, because I think education is a right that everyone should have access to, and that no one, if they want to educate themselves, they want to improve themselves, they should have the right to do so. So education policy, once again, a complete nutcase could only ever come up with this idea and think that this is a good idea. Repeal compulsory education and training for ages 17 and 18. We reject the concept of educational conscription that forces people to remain in education until 18. No, keep them in college. Let them learn stuff. Let them have a better part in life, because when you go to college, that's the very first time many people really start to embrace education, because they realize that there's more options out there for them, especially in the UK. That would be dumb. So dumb. Number 4, the distillation of the universities. Okay, see what this has got to say. Entities that cannot provide the full university range, bachelor, master's, doctorate, and research facilities shall no longer be called universities. They are, quote, colleges. Well, I do think, again, universities do and can provide very good research facilities. Not every university, or to be classed as a university, has to potentially provide research facilities. I'm pretty sure there are universities out there that only go to like a bachelor's and master's level. There's no problem in that. You know, because technically doing a bachelor and master's level is technically the, you know, a university thing. Oh, we've got a latecomer in. Latecomer in. Nice of you to join us. Nice of you to join us for this. Raquette, we've been going over the English Libertarian Party. Yes, they are a thing, and they are a bunch of lunatics and nut jobs. And like I say, should anyone from the English Libertarian Party see this, feel free to get in contact with me, and we'll set up a stream, and we will go through these policies, and you can defend them while I question you on their usefulness of this, of these policies. And yes, you are right, Sam. They're going back to the old polytechnic system. So it's a 2-tier system of education. So again, dragging us backwards into things that we know do not have good outcomes. And of course, 5, military education. Now, while I do believe that, again, people who do go into the military do have once they leave, can and should be educated. Again, the idea of vouchers, no. The military currently pays for a lot of this education. So, more notes. A very nice picture of a field and some balloons. Ah! Oh dear. Family law policy. Wanting the best for our children. Oh dear. Oh dear. Oh, damn. This might get interesting. An equal relationship with both parents. Again, we know that's not possible completely with this. You know, there are bad parents out there. Shocking as that might be, there are bad parents. Some parents do abandon their children. Again, while I think you want to maybe do this, it's very questionable again for the outcomes of the child, which is what we really need to prioritize during this. So again, the first policy, again, don't really agree with, because again, what if one parent does not give equal partnership to the other child? Again, that child's going to suffer. Protection of the child. Any convictions for domestic violence will also be seen as detrimental to the child. At least they agree with that. Agreements for time sharing will be needed to agree and protect the child and abuse them. That's, again, surprisingly a good policy, shockingly enough. This I disagree with. The opening of family courts. Family proceedings are normally held in private. Since 2010, members of the press have been allowed to attend. The right to attend hearings does not, however, grant the right to report on proceedings or public details of the proceedings. We believe that the proper scrutiny of a free press must be applied to all court matters. No, it shouldn't. Absolutely not. Again, we have these rules in place for a reason, so that you are protecting, again, the children. It protects the children from future recrimination or people finding out about them and essentially dragging them through the muck. So no, I am very happy for family courts to be held in private and to remain private. Oh, hang on. Why do I disagree with them since you're late to the stream? Well, I'm a lefty. I'm a UK lefty. I'm a card-carrying member of the Labour Party. And like I say, this is the Libertarian Party. A party, by the way, who, as we've already discussed earlier on the stream, wants to have pretty much a military dictatorship and create a constitution that cannot be changed, amended, be flexible, or open to interpretation, meaning that Britain would be governed by a constitution of dead men forever, permanently. And people might say, oh, well, what's the difference with the US one? Isn't that the same? No, there have been constitutional amendments, there have things been changed, there have things been challenged. And while a lot of people in America do hold it, the Constitution sacred, no, the Constitution has been changed in America over time. What they are proposing, these libertarians in the UK, are essentially proposing that it literally cannot be changed by law. That would be incredibly bad. Incredibly bad. Does this mean that the UK becomes a republic? No. They want to make the UK a federalist country. So, criminalize the breach of custody orders. I think that maybe already very well be the case for this. But again, I can't really speak to would it be a good or a bad idea at this moment in time. I don't really think it would be a good idea to criminalize the breach of custody orders. I think that if they are breached already, there is already mediation, as you mentioned in this part here, is in place to remain to keep peace. So there you go. Oh dear. Dismantle the child maintenance service. Oh dear. Oh dear. You mean the thing that, helps maintain children? Oh my. And of course, again, it's all about the costs. Closing department, that's making hundreds of thousands of people redundant. Good one on that. I think we're already in at least a good couple of thousand for making a lot of people redundant at this point. Again, it's absolutely ridiculous, but there you go. No. No. Why would you want to dismantle that? It serves a very good purpose. Oh dear. Firearms. Oh dear. Of course they want to bring back guns. I'm just not even going to bother. I'm just going to skip this completely because, like I say, we're running out of time. We've already been going for almost 2 hours at this point. So I don't think people will mind if we skip over this very quickly. So, of course, to review the 1997 ownership ban. By the way, it is a point of interest that obviously after this ban was put in place, while obviously crimes did go up because of this gun ownership ban, overall gun crime in the UK is incredibly rare. It is incredibly rare that you will ever be threatened with a gun on the streets of the UK. Now, of course, it does happen. I'm not going to deny that. But it is incredibly rare. Incredibly rare. Two, again, they want to amend the Violent Crime Reduction Act. Again, to do with guns. Review the licensing of firearm systems. I think the licensing system as it is at the point is indeed very fine. You have to jump through a lot of hoops. I am fine if people want to own firearms. I think you should have to jump through a lot of hoops to prove of that. Also, of course, if you do own a firearm, the police are entitled to come round to your house and check that you are following the rules at any time they may wish. I find that perfectly reasonable if you want to own a firearm. Like I say, I have a friend who does Napoleonic reenacting, and he has a black powder license, meaning that he's only allowed to keep a certain amount of black powder, which is of course gunpowder, to use, and of course he's not allowed to broadcast where he keeps that in his home. The police can turn up any moment and check that he is following the rules. And if the police don't find that he's following the rules, then he will also lose his license. But it keeps a very, very tiny amount what he keeps. So again, it's just for reenactment purposes. But again, I'm fine with that. And like I say, he had to jump through hoops for that, and he's fine with that as well. And then this could get a problem really quickly. Reclassify non-lethal items. This is, of course, talking about pepper sprays. If you saw in the riots in January the 6th, where literally seditionists decide to storm the Capitol and try and attempt a coup, one of the things that they had weapons at their disposal, they were spraying bear mace at the police. And this caused the police a heck of a lot of damage. No, pepper spray should absolutely not be in the hands of civilians, unless, again, you have a license to do it and a good reason to do so. And yet, someone's pointing out pepper spray can indeed be lethal to people with someone with asthma. Oh, foreign affairs, free, federal, and independent. So, of course, they want the exit from the European Customs Union. Not a surprise. Point two, exit from the European Common Markets. Of course. We knew this. this is, of course, again, we are currently seeing the benefits of doing that. There aren't any benefits. There are not any benefits so far. Lots of companies are struggling. And of course, we are about to, come October the 1st, see a lot more potential trouble down at the borders. Exit from the European Political Union. So they want Brexit done. That's certainly is true. And again, I guarantee they want to get rid of, again, getting rid of that. Yeah, they are against European freedom of movement. As you can see here, they want freedom of movement between Canada, Australia, New Zealand, and the UK. So why are you fine with freedom of movement between those countries, but not those of the EU, I wonder? Oh, being from the UK, do you support or not support Brexit? I don't support Brexit at all. Brexit was easily the biggest dumb move ever. Like I say, my entire YouTube channel is pretty much dedicated to to pointing out, shall we say, the failures of such of such the policy that we are currently going through, because Brexit is not going well at all. And of course, again, you are right. Only former empire colonies. You wouldn't think there would be any racist element to that, would you? But again, I don't want to accuse them of being racist, but it's kind of weird that it's just those countries in particular and not the European countries, when again, you admit that the benefit is more freedom, more freedom as a consequence of greater economic growth and happiness. Is that not the same, though, for freedom of movement being part of the European Union? That is a bit of an interesting, curious point you have me there. Again, like I say, the door is open to any English libertarian who wants to come and defend these policies. Like I say, it's going to be next week now at this point. But yes, if you do see this English Libertarian Party and you want to come and defend some of these policies, by all means, I will have you on and we'll talk about some of these. So fully integrate British overseas territories into the UK. Maybe I'd be okay with that. I'm not 100% sure. Like I say, I'd have to look into it. But of course, we have the Cayman Islands, of course, infamous for being a massive tax evasion hole. And I think that indeed they might be great wealth in actually integrating them fully into this point. So I do think, bizarrely, that is certainly one point we agree on. Although, again, how you would integrate it when you've already said that you want to get rid of government departments by default. You want to get rid of all government departments by default. So how would you cover the integration of that when you've literally closed the department that is meant to do that? Oh. Integrate overseas territories into UK. What does that mean? Essentially, we have the UK as it is, and most people know what I'm meaning when I'm meaning the UK. But of course, you have things like the Cayman Islands. Everyone's heard of the Cayman Islands, tiny, small parts of islands over in the Caribbean, and basically they are technically part of the UK, but they are, quote, overseas territories, which means that they have different rules and regulations compared to the rest of the UK. Most of the time, a governor gets labeled to them. At the moment, I believe, especially the Cayman Islands, is overseen by, I think, a government department, and they're essentially pretty much allowed to run themselves for the most part. Oh, Cathodgy, thank you very much. Yeah, I'm not sure anyone was expected to read this far, to be honest. And we're only, what, page 37 out of 80, so this might be a two-parter. This might be a two-parter. Trade, not aid. Make the Department of International Development redundant. So again, getting rid of another department. And it's kind of funny, actually, because we've actually literally just gone through that very recently in Parliament, of course, with the Tories wanting to cut foreign aid. And of course, they managedly squeaked it through. But the rest of the Tories have pretty much said, when we get back into power, we'll squeak it back up. And remember, it's 0.7%, which technically is a lot of money, of course, being based on the UK GDP. But again, very, very interesting movements from that there. And then what's this? 0.7. Unilateral free trade. Oh my. According to them, it is a misconception that free trade deals need to be struck. Really? So if you don't have a free trade deal with another country, what happens when your goods that might be banned or might be subject to a tariff or import costs, what then happens to them? What on earth are you talking about, English libertarians? How on earth do you even run a trade policy at that point if you just say free trade? That doesn't make any sense. That literally, that policy in itself does not even make any sense. Okay. No notes. Health. Oh, I don't know if should we leave it here and continue with this next time. So we're about halfway through. In fact, this makes a fantastic break point, to be honest, because oh my word, we've been going through it for almost 2 hours at this point. I don't know if I can take any more. I don't know if I can take any more. And that's a good point, actually, GC. How do you force other countries to indulge in free trade? But yeah, I think what this is going to be end of part one. And I think we will pick up here next Wednesday, because quite frankly, I've had all I can of libertarian policy for this evening. Like I say, we've been going almost 2 hours at this point, going over all their policies, and quite frankly, they are quite terrifying. Just to recap for all those who either joined us late or have been erased by the other, shall we say, previous forgotten policies. The first, of course, is to have a constitution that can basically never be changed, altered, challenged in any way, shape, or form. to have an education system, again, which is going to be an education free-for-all and create massive, what we're going to call educational deserts with educational oases, basically around the country. It will be an absolute disaster for education. Of course, the defense policy, again, makes no sense. We're going to have compulsory conscription based on a Swiss style, and they're going to essentially fetishize having the honor and duty to serve the country. Again, how fascistic of you. But again, that's what they say. It's in their manifesto. Again, the defense policy, again, doesn't make any sense because they're talking about increasing the size of the army. But of course, as we've seen from their economic policy, how are you going to pay for this when you are already on the train of the taxation is theft train? They haven't said it yet, which is interesting. I want to point that out. We'd already seen that by this point in the educational things. And yes, as Sam Loris points out, service guarantees citizenship. What a meme from the edge from these libertarians here. Once again, some more wacky crackpottery from the libertarians. Like I say, English libertarians, they are a thing. Crazy thing, but there you go. So if people want me to, next week, we will pick up from here in the manifesto. Like I say, we are literally halfway through. This is page 40 of, I think, 85. So we are like roughly over half the way through. And of course, we all know what's coming here in this healthcare, the abolishment for the NHS. Because that's going to be a fantastic thing. Apparently, they're going to claim that it will do. Again, we know the consequences of what that is going to be. Like I say, you've only got to look over to the US to see what a mess their healthcare system really is and to see how much we should cherish our NHS. So, like I say, please do hit that like, share, and subscribe button if you are out there. If you are on Twitch, do the Twitch thing, or come over to YouTube and have it. Check us out. Also, down below there are links to my Patreon page, and of course, you can buy me coffee from my one-off donation link as well. And thank you very much to all the people who do support the channel that way. You are fantastic as always. To the people who do support me, and of course, Saturday morning we'll be having our usual good morning walk. Hopefully this time there will be no, shall we say, random acts of God to stop us going on that walk. Fingers crossed. But yes, hopefully we'll be out and we'll be out in the fields. We'll get to see all the ponies and what our usual wildlife shenanigans, as well as talking about the ongoings of UK politics. Of course, it's, as they say, all quiet, but not completely on the Western Front. The politicians may be on holiday, but it doesn't stop the gossip machine from turning. So, and of course, next Wednesday, we will probably, if people want me to, be covering this. So, like I say, to any of the libertarians who are out there, if you fancy coming on and defending these policies, I would be very interested to know how you defend some of these wacky doodle policies. Yeah, like I say, the door's open. The Scots have refused, considering how much they love to talk about the free marketplace of ideas and love debate. Bizarre that they don't want to actually take up that opportunity, but there you go. So as always, thank you all for joining us on this fantastic look into the bizarre, wacky world of libertarian policy. Like I said, as always, it doesn't make sense. It's internally inconsistent, and they don't want a government, but they do want a government, but they want all these things, but at the same time don't want tax to actually pay for it. Like I say, with the ending of the broadband, if you currently don't have broadband where you live and this libertarian government got in, well, you're just out of luck. So, as always, thank you all for joining us. And of course, we'll see you all next time.